Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today, your primetime destination news. Newsmakers' talking points. Our big talking point is the India-Canada teardown that escalates by the day. Congress Member of Parliament Manish Tiwari will be among my special guests. Also, the former Canadian minister from British Columbia, where it all began, Ujjwal Dosanjh, will be joining me. So we'll have voices from both sides. As always, here on the news today, news without the noise. First, as always, it's time for the 9 headlines at 9. India strongly rejects Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's charges against the country, says no proof on Nijjar killing, maintains no proof on Nijjar killing shared since September 2023. Canada had said they had initially only intel, no evidence when it first went public with the allegations. Uttar Pradesh riot accused shot at in an encounter near the Nepal border. 5 arrested, NSA slapped against the accused. Opposition accuses Yogi government of encounter raj. Nayab Saini takes oath as the Haryana Chief Minister for a second term. NDA mantris and chief ministers hold a mega show of strength in Chandigarh. Mahavikas Aghadi kicks off its seat-sharing talks for Mumbai. Sources say Congress may get 15 seats in the city. Uddhav Sena may get 18 seats there. Bomb threats to Indian Airlines mount. Aviation Mantri vows strict action. Sources say hoax callers IP address traced to London and Germany. Former Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif calls External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar's visit to Islamabad a start. Hopes for India-Pakistan talks soon. Sharif says he will invite Prime Minister Modi. India Today among the channels that meet him. Another huge tragedy in Bihar. At least 20 killed after consumption of spurious liquor. Chief Minister Nitish Kumar holds a review meeting. Opposition targets the Bihar liquor ban. Supreme Court upholds the constitutional validity of Section 6A of the Citizenship Act. The Assam Accord grants citizenship to migrants in Assam from 1966 to 71. Suspense looms over Hamas chief Yahya Sinwar. Israel claims the October 7th mastermind may have been killed during an operation in the Gaza Strip. For the top story that we are breaking this evening, former Pakistan Prime Minister and the man whose party is in government there, Nawaz Sharif, has spoken to India Today this evening. Nawaz Sharif has batted for India-Pakistan cricket. Sharif says India should play the Champions Trophy scheduled for February next year in Pakistan and says we'll watch Pakistan play Asia Cup in India. Sharif says a Modi-Shehbaz meeting should also be held soon and that will take the dialogue between the two countries forward. So Sharif was meeting Indian journalists, including India Today, there in Lahore. Those pictures that you can see on your screen at the moment. And in fact, Geeta Mohan, our diplomatic affairs editor, was among those who met Sharif. Geeta, you met the former Pakistan Prime Minister a short while ago. What was his big message?
Well, Rajdeep, the message was very clear when it comes to Nawaz Sharif. He was very relaxed, but he came with a very strong message. And the message was of peace. He does want, and that the message he carried was that India and Pakistan need to start talking about peace and forward movement. His message to Prime Minister Modi was, let's not look back. Jai Shankar's visit is a start. Let's start looking to the future. 75 years have passed between India and Pakistan and nothing has moved forward. It is time that we do not waste 75 more years and that there is forward momentum. He actually looked back a lot on his visits, his meetings, a lot of fond memories, and he said he clutches them and keeps them very close to his heart. He was very thankful and grateful for Prime Minister Modi having visited him and his family in Raiwind. He also remembered how Prime Minister Modi spent time with his mother. So a lot of personal, anecdotal, conversations that took place with Nawaz Sharif, but the messaging is very clear. Somebody actually asked him whether he's playing bridge builder. He said, yes, that's the role that he's playing right now. He does want to see more forward movement. He is looking at, he said he would want to invite Prime Minister Modi to Pakistan. He also said that it would have been great if Prime Minister Modi would have come for this SCO summit, although we do know that this is not a prime ministerial level summit. It's the heads of state where Pakistan and Indian prime ministers really attend, and therefore Dr. Jaishankar was there. But he did say that Jaishankar's visit is a start. And so let's not look back. Prime Minister Modi will be invited by Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, and there is going to be some forward movement and momentum that he intends to see. There was a lot of conversation on cricket diplomacy. He wants the Pakistani cricket team, the Indian cricket team, to actually come for the for the Champions Trophy to Pakistan. And he also said that should the Pakistani team go for the Asia Cup and reach the finals, he will actually be in India and see the finals himself in person. Right. Finally, another very important message to Prime Minister Modi was that he said that during the climate summit, should both the prime ministers be there for the COP climate summit in November, they should then meet. He is looking at maybe forward movement, not just pull asides and conversations and chit chat, but maybe a bilateral between Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Interesting there. Could India-Pakistan cricket, among other things, now restart? It's all up in the air. Well, what is not up in the air is the war of words between India and Canada that continues to escalate. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau now claims that primarily he had only intel and no hard evidence when he initially raised the issue of Nijjar's assassination in Canada last year. The Ministry of External Affairs continues to deny the charges leveled by Justin Trudeau and claimed that till date Canada has not shared any piece of evidence with India. However, the ministry did admit that the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval met with the Canadian officials in Singapore. What happened at that meeting? Take a look at this report.
The India-Canada stare-down worsens.
What is it that you expect to see? What is it that you need?
A day after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau testified before the Foreign Interference Commission, the External Affairs Ministry rubbished the charges levelled against Indian diplomats by Canada.
We have made our position very clear that serious charges have been levelled against us, but so far, as we said in our press release, so far Canada has not given any evidence in support of the serious, very serious allegations that they've levelled against India and against Indian diplomats.
Trudeau, in his deposition on Wednesday, said last year, when he first spoke in Parliament, alleging potential Indian hand in the assassination of Khalistani extremist Rajdeep Sardesai, he only had intelligence inputs and no evidence.
As we approached the end of August and September, the big thing that was happening was India was itself hosting the leader of the summit of the advanced economies of the world, the G20. Their asks of us was, well, how much do you know? Give us the evidence you have on this. And our response was, well, it's within your security agencies. You should be looking into how much they know. You should be engaging. It's, no, tell us what you know. Show us the evidence. And at that point, it was primarily intelligence, not hard evidentiary proof. So we said, well, let's work together and look into your security services, and maybe we can get that done. No, we're not doing that.
First decided to run for office.
The Canadian PM went on to claim the Royal Canadian Mounted Police now has proof of the role Indian diplomats allegedly played.
The goal of disrupting the chain that was diplomats collecting information on Canadians who are opponents or in disagreement with the Modi government, passing along that information to the highest levels within the Indian government, and then having that information directed through criminal organizations like the Lawrence Bishnoi gang to then result in violence against Canadians on the ground. It was the RCMP's determination that that chain or that sequence, or that scheme, needed to be disrupted, and going public on Monday as they did.
Trudeau, who defended going public before presenting proof in courts, incidentally did not mention the meeting between Canadian officials and India's NSA, Ajit Doval, in Singapore last week. The MEA on Thursday confirmed the meeting happened, but said no proof was shared.
Regarding the Singapore meeting, yes, the Singapore meeting, yes, had happened, and some exchanges had taken place. I don't have anything further to share about that particular meeting.
While India and Canada are involved in a fierce standoff, New Delhi and Washington have made progress in the investigation into the alleged plot to assassinate Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, a Khalistani separatist designated as terrorist by India. The MEA confirmed the intelligence official identified as CC1 in the US court documents has been sacked.
You had a question regarding the U.S. State Department informing us that the individual who was named in the Justice Department indictment is no longer an employee of the Government of India. Yes, I confirm that he's no longer an employee of the Government of India.
We are satisfied with the cooperation. It continues to be an ongoing process. We continue to work with them on that, but we do appreciate the cooperation, and we appreciate them updating us on their investigation as we update them on ours.
New Delhi has also said that Canada so far has not acted on its request to extradite many Khalistani terrorists and criminals, including many from the Lawrence Bishnoi gang. With neither countries climbing down, the standoff could get prolonged till elections in Canada next year. Bureau Report, India Today.
So will India now take a united stand against Trudeau and Canada? Joining me now is someone who focuses on his party's foreign policy. Congress's Manish Tiwari, senior MP from Chandigarh, joins me. Manish Tiwari, I saw a tweet of yours saying that Canada does not understand India's sensitivities. Your own father, I recall, was killed by Khalistani terrorists. Your response then when you hear Canada putting the ball in India's court and refusing to take responsibility for the presence of Khalistani extremists on their soil?
Rajdeep, I think things have to be understood in a perspective, dehorse personal tragedy. The fact is that the relationship between India and Canada goes back to the last decade or the closing years of the 19th century. So therefore, we have almost a 110-year-old people-to-people relationship with Canada. Millions of Indians have gone and settled in Canada over a period of almost a century. They have been absorbed and assimilated into the mainstream of the Canadian milieu. And so therefore, like any other immigrant community, they are extremely peace-loving citizens who want that they should progress, they should prosper, their children should get a better life, which is essentially the raison d'etre of their immigration. Mm-hmm. So therefore, under those circumstances, the turbulence that you see, which unfortunately has been the swan song of the Trudeau administration, really does not either help the cause of Indo-Canadian relations or even the very, very large peace-loving diaspora, which has now called Canada its home for almost a century.
But at the same time, Mr. Tiwari, the manner in which Canada is targeting India, serious allegations being made that India has encouraged criminals, including the likes of Lawrence Bishnoi's gang members in Canada, to carry out these assassinations. This, even though India has made several extradition requests to get members of the gang and Khalistanis back in India. How do you see this? The fact that Canada seems to be turning a blind eye to Khalistani extremism, but is now talking about the Lawrence Bishnoi gang.
Well, it is inexplicable and perplexing as to why the Trudeau administration has decided to up the ante. India has always been a responsible state, and we've always very, very carefully nurtured our relationship with especially those countries where we have a large diaspora. Our relationship with the United States has been on the upswing, now going back almost 3 decades. Similarly, we've had a very, very stable relationship with Canada. So it is really perplexing and, as I earlier stated, inexplicable as to why the Trudeau administration has chosen to go down this path.
But your colleague Jairam Ramesh, senior Congress MP and spokesperson, says brand India is being hit by this controversy. Narendra Modi ji needs to take the opposition into confidence over these serious allegations being made by Canada. How do you think the opposition should now look at this? Should they come together, draw a red line with Canada? Should the Prime Minister take you into confidence?
Well, let's look at the facts as they are. So therefore, whether you like it or not, you have these allegations unsubstantiated in the public space. India is a democracy. We have a parliament. And so obviously it is incumbent upon the government to take the opposition into confidence. If there is turbulence in our relationship with a country where we have nurtured a very, very close relationship assiduously over all these years. But having said that, the fact remains that out of the millions and millions of Indo-Canadians who call Canada their home, there is a fringe which unfortunately has been not really working either in the interest of the Indo-Canadian relationship and certainly not in the interest of India or Canada. And therefore, as I had earlier stated, that there are concerns that India has, legitimate concerns going back now many decades, and there is a need for the Canadian government to be sensitive to those concerns. After all, the territorial integrity of India, the sovereignty of India is above partisan and party politics.
You know, because Manish Tiwari, in your tweet today, you also mentioned how the Kanishka bombing took place in the 1980s, and that for far too long, Khalistani groups advocating separatism, violence against India on Canadian soil have not been really reined in. Canadian citizens died in the Kanishka bombing. Do you believe that Canada, before it claims to take the moral high ground about its own territorial integrity, must first answer how they've allowed their soil to be used for anti-India activities stretching back to the Kanishka bombing in the 1980s?
Rajdeep, as I earlier said, that there are festering issues which have been pending for quite a while. And the Indian National Congress has always been in the forefront of upholding the integrity and sovereignty of India. Over all these decades, the many and the myriad challenges which were faced by the Indian state were very successfully met by an Indian government under the leadership of the Indian National Congress. So therefore, as I said, when it comes to national security, when it comes to the sovereignty and integrity of India, these are issues which are above any kind of party politics, and they should concern all of us equally.
One final question, Manish Tiwari. It's not just Canada now. America's backing Canada. United Kingdom is backing them. So is Australia. These are the Five Eyes allies. Does that trouble you, the fact that now we've got all these countries coming together and virtually accusing India of extrajudicial killings in their countries? Is that acceptable to you?
Well, that's precisely the reason why the government should take the opposition into confidence, because when it comes to issues of national security, there is a need to close ranks. And what you really have by the reportage in the public space are allegations at this point in time, allegations which will have to be established conclusively beyond reasonable doubt in a court of law. So that's why I said that it is inexplicable as to why, for almost the past 12 months, the Trudeau administration has upped the ante. They should have allowed the criminal processes to play themselves out. If the criminal processes would have thrown up something, then it could have been dealt at this point in time. It is almost a case of prejudgment, if I can put it in those words.
Okay, Manish Tiwari joining me there to give us your perspective. Appreciate you joining us. You're an MP, of course, from Chandigarh. Thank you very much for joining me. Now, we've heard an Indian leader here speak out. What about the Canadians? Because a short while ago, or yesterday, in fact, I spoke to Ujjwal Dosanjh. He is the former Premier of British Columbia, Vancouver, where a lot of these separatist groups are accused of fomenting turmoil, Khalistani groups. Listen into what Ujjwal Dosanjh, no friend of Trudeau, had to say. And joining me now is a special guest from Vancouver in Canada, the former Minister of Health of Canada, Premier of British Columbia. Ujjwal Dosanjh joins me. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Dosanjh. India-Canada relations spiraling down and down by the day. Justin Trudeau even going to the extent of accusing the Modi government now of criminal activity. How do you read this? What's going on? Why is Trudeau playing with fire?
Well, I think that there are several aspects to it. One is that the RCMP usually don't do news conferences just because the politicians ask them, because there's no political influence in that regard.
That's the Royal Canadian Mounted Police when you say RCMP. Go ahead.
Yes, and I can tell you that from my own experience. I was the Attorney General for BC, and there's a large contingent of RCMP, as was my responsibility. They don't listen to the politicians. There is a clear separation. So they must have had something serious when they held a news conference, which is unusual for them. So in that sense, I think that the Prime Minister should be concerned. But this Prime Minister has mishandled this situation right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. He may have had some political compulsions now, because there is the inquiry on foreign interference in Canadian politics that's going on, and he was testifying either today or tomorrow in that. So this may have come in as a handy thing to do politically. But I think if the RCMP has the evidence that it alleges it has, then it's a serious issue. I think the situation from the Indian point of view, I must say, if the allegations are even half true, it doesn't look too good, in the sense that if you add that to what Mr. Modi has been saying, aapke ghar mein ghus ke marenge attitude, this muscular foreign policy attitude, then that creates a problem for the relationship. That is not to say that Mr. Trudeau has not been knee-deep mired in this Khalistani business.
Now, that's the point I wanted to make. That's the point. Mr. Trudeau, as you said, has been knee-deep in what you say Khalistani business. But this is not just business. These are groups which are avowedly linked to terror acts that have in the past caused huge loss of innocent lives. How can a Prime Minister who flirts or engages or co-opts such elements then take the moral high ground and say India is targeting Niger?
Well, I think the distinction is this. They are alleging that the government of India has gangsters that are indirectly or directly doing the damage they're doing in Canada. Mm-hmm. Whereas Mr. Trudeau would say, under the rubric of freedom of expression, people are free to ask for anything. I think where what I say is this: Mr. Trudeau has had the implicit and the explicit support of the Khalistanis in his leadership. They've been in his cabinet. He now relies on the support of Jagmeet Singh to remain in minority government, and he's a Khalistani himself. So Mr. Trudeau is complicit in the sense that he has never truly condemned the activities of the extremist Khalistani elements in this country. And he's always taken the protection or the refuge of the freedom of expression, disregarding the fact that these people have engaged in terrorism both against the Sikh community here and the other Indo-Canadian communities here, as well as against India, directly and indirectly. And Air India is just one example.
But that precisely brings me to the point, Mr. Dosanjh. Here is a leader of a sovereign nation, Canada, who's making these allegations openly. Let's assume that the Canadian government has hard, credible evidence that they claim of alleged Indian involvement in the killing of Nijjar. This could have been done behind closed doors. This could have been done in a diplomatic fashion. Given that there are strong ties between the two countries, what is it leading to? It's leading to a kind of major face-off with wild accusations, some would say, being made by Trudeau by the day, only to cater to domestic public opinion. It puts him...
I think that you're absolutely right. I would agree with you that even the first time when he stood up in Parliament, he had political compulsions. There were scandals galore on the Canadian political scene, and he simply wanted to divert the attention of Canadians from those. So he stood up in Parliament, which has never been done for, ever in my living memory, in Canada, in Canadian Parliament. You deal with these things behind the scenes with each other. I think that was the first wrong thing he did, improperly handled it. And now he continues to just do that, because right now there is the inquiry in the foreign interference inquiry that's going on underway in Ottawa. And he was going to be testifying either today or tomorrow before that. And this simply assists him in saying, yeah, there is foreign interference. Look, this is what India is doing.
He's obviously trying to play to his vote bank, trying to appease politicians who are part of his coalition government. But how are the people of Canada seeing it? This is a country where there are more than 4 lakh Indian students studying in Canada, a country with which India has had strong ties, both members of the Commonwealth. How is the average Canadian Indian, in your view, seeing this? Many of whom have strong ties with India as well. That here is their Prime Minister taking on the Indian government in this sort of rather open, crude, brazen manner.
Well, most Indo-Canadians, including the Sikhs, are tired of the Khalistani business. They don't speak up because there is terrorism, there is violence, there is extremism. People are afraid. People don't talk. Vast majority of the Sikhs and other Indo-Canadians are very unhappy with Mr. Trudeau and the Khalistani extremism that's going on here for a long, long time. That's a given. But they can't do very much. This is not a sort of a combat in the streets that you can win or lose. This is a political battle in this country. And I don't see Indo-Canadian, India and Canada relationship improving anytime soon within the mandate of Mr. Trudeau. And I might say that we might even have to look past Mr. Modi because of his so-called muscular foreign policy interventions. Because, even if you have gangsters who are directly or indirectly doing what is alleged on behalf of the government of India, that is absolutely wrong. Yeah, just because America, takes out a few people across the world doesn't make it right.
No, it doesn't make it right. Are you saying, therefore, that you see Canada also getting support, possibly from the Americans? That's one concern, that there's a lot of intelligence sharing going on between the Five Eyes countries, and therefore, do you believe that India itself will also have some answering to do to the Canadian people and the international community? And will the Canadians actually put this information that they claim they have in the public domain now?
Well, the information will come to the public domain because these are going to be public trials of various people that have been charged. So there's no question in my mind that the RCMP allegations, most of them, might turn into evidence before the Canadian courts. In terms of the U.S., Five Eyes are a very cohesive unit. and they share information and intelligence with each other. And I think the fact is that, I don't think India is totally blame-free in this situation. Particularly under Modi. I'm not criticizing. I don't want to talk about Indian foreign policy, but the fact is that you and I both know that he's boasted about sending people into your homes to kill you, and that is not very good for India. I mean, great powers do dumb stuff sometimes. Great nations don't.
The ghar mein ghuskar analogy was for Pakistan. This is now Canada, which is an entire different dimension. Therefore, I wonder, where does this go? Where do we head from here? We've heard the Canadian Foreign Minister Melanie Joly saying everything is on the table. There's even talk of sanctions. We've had diplomats from both countries being recalled, expelled. Do you see this spiral being stopped in the near term, or do you believe that will require possibly Mr. Trudeau to be outed from power for anything to change, given that he seems to be determined to go down this path?
Well, I'm hoping that if there is a change of government, that Mr. Poilievre would bring a different lens to this situation and might, in fact, condemn the extremism of the Khalistanis in this country. But I'm not that hopeful of Indo-Canadian relations improving anytime soon with Mr. Modi or Mr. Trudeau. I'm being very honest with you. I think the perception abroad is that Mr. Modi is an extreme right-wing politician and wouldn't shy away from doing violence abroad. That is the perception.
The perception in India, if I may add, is that Justin Trudeau is a prisoner of Khalistani extremists and terrorists and does what they would like and says what they would like him to say. So there are these contrasting perceptions. Trudeau is now seen by India as someone who's against India's national interests, and you probably see Mr. Modi, as you said, in a very different light. So given that, are you telling me there is no one out there who can repair the rupture?
Well, there is truth to the perceptions that you're talked about for both leaders. There is substantial truth to both of these observations that you've made for both the leaders. But I don't believe that you can improve bilateral relations going outside of the prime ministers of each country. And insofar as I'm concerned, both Mr. Modi and Mr. Trudeau have some significant defects in terms of the ability to be able to put the relationship back together.
Yeah, but Ujjwal Dosanjh saying it like he sees it. Let's raise some big questions and widen this. Is Mr. Trudeau spoiling for a fight day by day? Is politics now above ties with India for Trudeau? Is it all about politics? How should India now respond? And how does one restore India-Canada ties? I'm joined by Kanwal Sibal, former Foreign Secretary. Shashikant is former DGP Punjab. He'll give us the Lawrence Bishnoi angle. And Ward Elcock is former Director, Canadian Security Intelligence Service. I want to come to you, Mr. Elcock, first, because the charges that are being made by Mr. Trudeau, he says he had intel initially, but he doesn't put the hard evidence on the table, and then uses the word Lawrence Bishnoi and says gangsters are being provided information and they're the ones responsible for these assassinations. These are all serious charges in the public domain, can't be made on just intel. Is Mr. Trudeau overplayed his hand, sir?
No, not in the least. And it's not based on intelligence at this point. The reality is, at this point, there are 20 or 30 charges outstanding as a result of the RCMP investigations into these issues. This is not any longer about intelligence. This is about evidence that will be presented in court in probably the not too distant future. Exactly when will depend on how fast the Crown can proceed, how fast it wants to proceed. This is going to be a complex case, so it may not proceed very quickly. But over the next while, we will see. We are likely to see evidence, and since somebody of a large group like 20 or 30 people is bound to flip, we're probably going to see quite a lot of evidence about
the nature
what
of it.
Occurred.
Any sense of the nature of this evidence? That is this evidence that is enough for Trudeau to make the kind of statements he makes, even suggesting that the Indian High Commissioner becomes a person of interest?
No, there is the reason for the High Commissioner to be declared a person of interest was because of the RCMP investigation identifying him as a person of interest in their investigation. Nothing to do with Mr. Trudeau.
Interesting. Kamal Sibal, you're listening to a former Canadian top security intelligence service official saying they have hard evidence. Now, we don't know the nature of it. It'll come out in a court investigation. Just as the Canadians and Trudeau have messed up, have we also messed up this situation? Is it time for us also to introspect? We can't have Lawrence Bishnoi being used to settle our, to target some Khalistani. That's not what foreign policy surely is about. Do we have to also introspect who allowed Lawrence Bishnoi to become a freelance agent?
But who is giving proof of this? This is just what the Canadians are saying, and why should we take them at their word?
No, I'm just telling you, a Canadian security intelligence service head says all of this is going to come out in court. So are we going to end up embarrassing ourselves by saying where is the evidence?
Let it come out. And the gentleman who was the earlier head of the CSIS, he has to defend his country's position and his organization. That doesn't surprise me. But a lot of nonsense has been saying on the Canadian side and also by Mr. Dosanjh, unfortunately, whatever his name is. Because if Modi has this muscular policy, how is it that he has not used this against the United States? He has not used this against Britain. He has not used this in other countries where Khalistani supporters are active. In fact, relations with the United States, despite the incident of Panoon, are progressing very well. With the UK, things are settling down. They're cooperating with us much more. Canada is a very special case because of the immaturity of his leader. He's gone and destroyed a relationship which in the past has been very good, was on the mend under Stephen Harper. We were doing very well. We signed the nuclear agreement. We started buying uranium from Canada. We started negotiating the FTA. But he has ruined everything because of his politics.
So I take your point. I take your point about his immaturity, his politics. But sir, just to answer us, you mentioned US, you mentioned UK. All of them publicly are backing Canada. Does that not become embarrassing? How long are we going to live in denial?
It is not embarrassing one bit. It is because the Five Eyes there to support him, because he's going around telephoning everybody, begging everybody to support him. The British initially made quite a muted statement. But clearly, Mr. Trudeau went to the Starmer and said, look, you have to support me more openly. And the second statement they have done. But look at the British record. Have they extradited anybody from Britain? How many extradition requests have we made? What about their judicial system? We made 26 extradition requests to Canada. Have they extradited anybody? Now they talk about India cooperating. Trudeau says India must cooperate with Canada. But has Canada cooperated with us?
Very good point. Very good point, Mr. Sibal, let me take that to Mr. Alcock. Mr. Sibal here says, we've made several extradition requests to Canada, Khalistani terrorists. Now we are being told by sources even about the Lawrence Bishnoi gang. Canada doesn't respond to India's concerns. India's territorial integrity is our concern just as it is yours.
I'm sure that the Canadian government supports India's integrity. Having said that,
So with due regards, sir, why are those who we ask for extradition not being extradited?
The Canadian government is actually being quite clear on that subject. It is said on a number of occasions that the requests for extradition that the Indian government has sent to the government of Canada have been deficient. It is not simply enough to say that there are people who support Khalistan separatism for Canada to take action on extraditing somebody to India. It's perfectly legal for somebody to talk about Quebec separatism in Canada. It's also perfectly legal for somebody in Canada to talk about Khalistan independence. Those are not issues on which people will be extradited to any other country or prosecuted for terrorism. So if the Indian government actually wants to produce evidence that somebody is engaged in terror, then they should do that. But so far as I understand it, from all of the statements that have been made by the government, the Indian government has so far failed to do that.
I want to bring in at this moment Shashikant, former DGP Punjab, because you've tracked the career of Lawrence Bishnoi. He's become the X factor in all of this. Do you believe Justin Trudeau when he says the Lawrence Bishnoi gang is being used to carry out extrajudicial killings in Canada? Can he be that powerful?
Look, I'm surprised. In fact, I'm amused at whatever points are being made. They say that Niger was killed by somebody. But here, the other day it was happening in Bombay. A political leader was killed. This gang said, yes, they had killed it. Musawala, wherever they do it, they take the responsibility. Has anybody taken responsibility? Or they're just moving in that circle of intelligence? Intelligence and hard facts are different. I have been in intelligence myself. Intelligence and hard facts are repeat, whether it's I-5, I-7, whatever it is. And again, I'll come back to the report of the Canadian parliamentarians. It was in 2018, where they said that China and Pakistan, they are all meddling in their affairs. Have they raised this point? Why are they only talking about India, what India has done? If Indian gangsters are there, they're doing something, they take the responsibility. Who's killed? Has anybody taken responsibility? Just living in the area that, hey, intelligence, that doesn't mean. I know that the Canadian Prime Minister is fighting for his own survival. He's heading a minority government. Any day it can fall. Next year they have the elections.
So you're saying this intel is not strong enough, but Kamal Sibal, a final word from you. All of this, and I come back to it, do we also need to look inwards? I repeat this once again to you. Surely someone, I spoke to, I can tell you, a former foreign secretary, another former secretary, and he told me, I can't come on your channel, but we have messed up. And we need to acknowledge that, if not publicly, then privately.
I don't know what he meant by we having messed up, because there is nothing that we have done. Look, the fact...
We've got cases in America and Canada where both these countries are accusing Indian citizens. Does that not trouble you?
No, it doesn't trouble me. Does it trouble the Americans? That they have killed, high officials, state officials of other countries on foreign soil. Does it trouble the Canadians that their forces have committed atrocities and human rights violations in Afghanistan? They have been in every NATO operation everywhere, and they have done it. Are they troubled by that? What happens to their moral stature and their moral pretensions? And India is being accused. Look, the High Commissioner is being made a person of interest. Is complete nonsense. It is unbelievable that they think that the High Commissioner of India or the Indian ambassadors are involved in murder schemes. This is just sheer propaganda. If they wanted to declare him persona non grata, they should have just done.
Mr. Warlock, is this propaganda? End of the day, is this also part propaganda? When you come in the public domain as the Prime Minister of the country, you're expected to make your comments, Mr. Elcock, with complete confidence based on fact, not on conjecture. The court hearing will prove that. Has Canada overplayed its hand one final time?
You're all emphasizing Mr. Trudeau. The reality is this began, at least the most recent episode, began with the RCMP making statements. It is the RCMP that have collected evidence and have laid criminal charges with the support of the Crown Prosecutor. So there are charges that are pending. Those trials will go ahead. Evidence will be produced, but for it to be produced before the trial is nonsensical and will not happen.
Okay.
I doubt very much that it happens in India. If it does, that's a strange way to conduct a trial. But it will not happen in Canada until the trial takes place. When that trial takes place, the evidence will be presented to the court where it should be presented. And what that evidence will be interesting. But I suspect it's likely that with a large number of people, there are something like 20 or 30 people charged, somebody will roll over. So there will also be people who are willing to testify to their contacts, as well as whatever information the government, the RCMP have.
Let me leave it there. It's interesting how this is going to play out in the weeks and months ahead. This is not over. This is something that requires diplomatic savviness now. Two countries who are supposed to be friendly with each other, engaging in this kind of face-to-face attack day by day is extremely unfortunate. Welcome back. Let's turn to the top political story of the day. It came from Chandigarh, where Nayab Saini was sworn in as Haryana's chief minister for a second time. The event was used as an opportunity to showcase the strength of the BJP-led NDA alliance, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi in attendance, along with prominent leaders of the BJP, as well as some of the NDA chief ministers. Here's a detailed report.
मैं नायब सिंह सैनी ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं।
Nayab Saini takes oath as Haryana's Chief Minister.
स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगा।
12 cabinet ministers also took the oath alongside Saini.
आप सभी लोग यहाँ पर
The swearing-in ceremony was high on political symbolism. One, it was held on Valmiki Jayanti and was quite an evident reach out to the Dalit community. Two, the ceremony was also a show of strength by the National Democratic Alliance. The event held at Panchkula was attended by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Amit Shah, top BJP leaders, along with 18 chief ministers from NDA-ruled states, including Maharashtra CM Eknath Shinde, who is facing elections next month. Saini's cabinet represents a carefully balanced team that mirrors the state's diverse community and caste dynamics. It includes 2 Dalits, 1 Brahmin, 2 Jats, 4 OBCs, 1 Rajput, 1 Punjabi and a Bania, ensuring broad representation.
I, Shruti Chaudhary, do swear in the name of God.
The 2 women in the ministry are Shruti Chaudhary, MLA from Bhiwani Mahendragarh and granddaughter of former CM Bansi Lal.
The sovereignty and integrity of India.
आरती सिंह राव ईश्वर की शपथ लेती हूँ कि मैं
And Aarti Rao, MLA from Ateli and daughter of Union Minister Rao Indrajit Singh. The oath ceremony was followed by an NDA brainstorming session chaired by Prime Minister Modi. The show of unity in Haryana, where the BJP won a 3rd consecutive term, sent out a clear message. The NDA is battle ready for the upcoming assembly elections.
पहली बार इस तरीके से देश की प्रगति को अपने दृष्टि से आगे बढ़ाने के लिए एक रिजॉल्व करके आगे बढ़ा है। मुझे उम्मीद है कि इस बैठक से हमारे सभी साथी पूरी ताकत से आगे बढ़ेंगे।
The victory has helped the BJP bury the ghosts of Lok Sabha poll that saw its tally come down to 240 and gives it a booster ahead of Maharashtra elections next month. Bureau Report, India Today.
And speaking of elections in Maharashtra, let's turn to our Get Real India story. Remember, one of the potential game changers for the Maharashtra government is its Ladki Bahin Yojana, under which poor women get 1,500 rupees a month. Already 46,000 crore of the budget have been allocated for this scheme. But now an RTI query has revealed that a huge sum of this money, or at least 200 crores of it, have been spent simply on advertising. The Shinde government defends the expense, the opposition up in arms. Take a look.
नारी मतलब संस्कार, नारी एक सशक्त सहारा, नारी अन्नपूर्णा का अवतार.
Ladki Bahin Yojana, a scheme that gives 1,500 rupees a month to women from poor families, is being seen as the biggest vote catcher by the Mahayuti government in Maharashtra. The Eknath Shinde government has allocated 46,000 crore rupees for the welfare scheme, inspired by the Ladki Bahin that catapulted BJP to another term in Madhya Pradesh last year. The state government has already spent nearly 200 crore rupees in the promotion of the scheme launched in July, according to a reply to an RTI query by activist Ajay Bose. The money was spent on advertisements of this scheme in electronic, print and other forms of communication. The opposition is calling the ad blitz a waste of public money.
अगर यही पैसा बचाते और लाड़की बहन को देते तो बढ़त तो उसमें हो जाती थी। वो महाझूठी है, महायुति नहीं है।
The BJP has defended the expenditure on the promotion of the scheme.
हर योजना ग्राम पंचायत तक पहुंचने के लिए उसे जब तक जाहिरात नहीं करेंगे, लोगों के बीच में नहीं जाएंगे, अलग अलग माध्यम नहीं करेंगे, तब तक लोगों के बीच में योजना नहीं पहुंचती। और मुझे लगता है जो आरोप कर रहे हैं वो गलत तरीके का आरोप कर रहे हैं, नैरेटिव सेट करने का काम कर रहे हैं। उन्हें भी मालूम है कि ये सत्ता में खुद मुख्यमंत्री रहे जिन्होंने आरोप किए, उनके पिताजी, तो उन्हें मालूम होना चाहिए कि इस तरीके के आरोप कर कोई फायदा नहीं होगा, ये वैफल्यग्रस्त आरोप है।
The Eknath Shinde government has allocated nearly 1 lakh crore rupees for welfare schemes in the budget this year. The NDA is banking on these schemes to retain power in the elections that will be held on November 20th. With Yogesh Pandey, Bureau Report, India Today.
Let me leave you though tonight with our good news today story. And it's once again a story that shows that human spirit can trump above all else. 17-year-old Prithviraj Sengupta, a resident of Mumbai suffering from Down syndrome, has made the nation proud after winning the gold medal at the Commonwealth Powerlifting Championships in Kyrgyzstan. He's also a skilled baker and aims to open a fitness-inspired bakery shop one day. We wish him well, stay safe, good night, Shubhratri, Jai Hind, Namaskar. Look at our good news story. Bye for now.
Give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
17-year-old Prithviraj Sengupta, who is suffering from Down syndrome, has made the nation proud. Prithviraj clinched a gold medal at the Commonwealth Powerlifting Championship in Kyrgyzstan.
Yes! What a fight! What a fight! 2-1!
Yeah, he got it.
You got a standing ovation.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well done.
Thank you.
Prithviraj grew up in Mumbai with his mother and grandparents. His introduction to sports came on the recommendation of his doctor, Shobha Sharma, who suggested physical activity to help with his Down syndrome by improving muscle tone. India's strongest man, Aman Vora, not only coached Prithvi in powerlifting but also became a mentor, guiding him through the intricacies of competitive sports. Prithvi's father encouraged him to pursue powerlifting. Despite only 6 months of training, Prithvi quickly made his mark, winning gold at both district and state level competitions in Mumbai.
Never take holiday from dream. Stay stronger and make more practice from other competitions, from other things, games.
Beyond powerlifting, Prithvi is a skilled baker with dreams of opening a bakery that focuses on fitness-friendly treats. Looking ahead, Prithvi has his sights set on competing in the Olympics, determined to push his limits even further. Bureau Report, India Today.